AI will take over so many tasks, which is on the one hand an opportunity and which is nice, and especially when it's tedious tasks or tasks we're not good at. But it's becoming clear that many professional occupations will be gone perhaps in the future, including creative jobs. People will lose their jobs. Many other tasks could be taken over by AI. So the big problem, and again, we believe this is very much underreported or not really thought through, is what are we going to do in those times with all the time we have at hand, how we are going to spend the day. In the past, humans were often skeptical towards new technologies, and then finally they adjusted their behavior. And it's quite obvious if we look at our few generations back, those people would have not expected that we spend now so much time on a mobile phone, on a smartphone, and we still enjoy this. So there's quite a chance that things we are considering nowadays is dystopian, that they become normal. Explainability, a huge issue. My co-author, Roman Yampolskiy, he published a book before, which is all about unexplainability of AI. I mean, it's a huge issue that we have. AI is our big tool, but we even can't explain it. What's going on there, which also is understandable because, and this is the other thing, why this is all unprecedented, because AI is something which is in the end smarter than us, and it's much, much smarter, so we shouldn't be surprised that we can't explain it. And it's also kind of arrogant in a way that we are aiming to govern AI while it hasn't happened in history that beings which are less intelligent are able to govern something which is much more intelligent. I mean, the monkeys and the dogs in the world, they are not governing us because they can't.
Thank you for joining the Ones Changing the World, India's first Future Tech Meets Sustainability podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Avery, and today I'm delighted and honored to have with me Dr. Soenke Ziesche, who has a Ph.D. in computer science from the University of Hamburg and has worked for over 20 years for the United Nations in the humanitarian and recovery sector. He is the lead expert for the AI Readiness assessment of Bangladesh, Maldives, and India, and has worked as a senior researcher on artificial intelligence at the Maldives National University. He was the lead technical advisor at the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction 2024 Regional Assessment Report on disaster risk reduction in the Arab region. And he is the co-author of Considerations on the AI Game, Ethics, Risk, and Computational Framework. So, Doctor, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. It will be great if you could start with your AI readiness assessment methodology. It will be great if you could maybe explain and elaborate about that. And how does this help member states develop AI regulatory and institutional capacity building?
Yes, and thank you very much for the invitation, Eddie, and also for the kind introduction. Sure, I have to say one thing. I have not created this readiness assessment methodology. So perhaps also to clarify, I work for the UN, and I think today especially we talk about my work for UNESCO. But then also I'm an independent researcher. So this book we are going to talk about later is completely independent. The topic of AI also, obviously in the previous years had to become an important topic for the UN to deal with because AI is affecting all of us. So also the United Nations is looking into this for quite some time now. And especially they look into the ethics of AI, which is a critical topic. Already in 2021, all the 193 member states of UNESCO approved a so-called recommendations on the ethics of AI. So this was a major milestone because literally every country in the world, I mean, all member states of UNESCO approved this recommendation. So this cannot be underestimated how important this is. And this is a global framework that aims to ensure AI is developed in ways that it maximizes the benefits and minimizes the risks, which is a huge challenge. And now then the second step or the step afterwards was that UNESCO developed a readiness assessment methodology, RAM, readiness assessment methodology. And this is what you mentioned. And this methodology is a tool they designed to help countries assess their preparedness for implementing these recommendations on the ethics, which all the member states approved. So this is a standardized tool to basically check for every country how they are doing in terms of AI development, how if there are any gaps, what they have to do perhaps to catch up with other countries, and how the AI development in these countries align with ethical principles and human rights. And as you correctly said, I'm working for 3 countries because I mean it has to be done, will be done in all countries, and I'm focusing on Bangladesh, Maldives and India. And this already shows that, as you can imagine, that there are major differences. I mean, you are from India, and AI is a huge topic in India, while, of course, Maldives is a neighboring country, but it's tiny. There is obviously much less going on also because it's much smaller population. But I think this is very important to note about this project and about the UN in general. So there's this slogan, leave no one behind, because, of course, we know that you can't in many ways really compare India with Maldives, for example, and Bangladesh is kind of in between. But it is also important that those smaller countries are getting ready to work with AI. There's this so-called digital divide exists already for a long time because before AI came up. There's a divide between countries, also within countries. And it's important, since AI is so critical, that also the smaller countries are getting ready at an early stage, that they realize what gaps there are, perhaps they have to catch up on. And so according to the standardized methodology, I'm doing this for these 3 countries. It's done for other countries as well. You can look it up on the UNESCO website. I think perhaps this has been completed maybe for around 12 countries, more and more coming. So then in the end, there's supposed to be on this website reports from all countries where you can see how they are doing, and then with recommendations and what else they could do so that everyone is on the same page, hopefully. And perhaps the last thing, there's this so-called UNESCO AI Ethics Experts Without Border network, and I'm a member of this network. And this is also linked to this whole project endeavor to basically work on the ethics of AI, what UNESCO is doing.
I think we're sitting in such a fantastic point of time. And like this motto of yours, which you mentioned, leave no one behind. I think it's so critical in, humanity as a species going forward, because first time in history of mankind, we have created this self-learning tech of sorts, and it's accelerating at the speed of light. So will be great if you could maybe give us an overview on artificial intelligence, these large language models, these reasoning models, and these next step of evolution through these chain of thought, these agentic AI that we are kind of building. Will be great if you could give us the lay of the land of artificial general intelligence, and how is this going to impact the society and the world?
Yes, and thank you very much. Perhaps, I'm not sure, I may not go in that much details, because I'm sure many of your viewers are familiar with the latest developments. I mean, it has started AI has been a topic for decades, and there have been ups and downs. And then for the past over 10 years, there has been major progress, also thanks to new technologies when it comes to neural networks, deep learning processes. Yes, and LLMs, large language models, are kind of the latest. Now we have them already in development, but we have them already for quite a few years. And they are. This is of course perhaps also the first, then the final step when it really became known to a large public, and it has been used by many people by now, and people are getting familiar with it. But this is moving on, and now one of the latest buzzwords is agentic AI. So this is something which is being developed. There's also this buzzword, artificial general intelligence, which is exciting, but could be also scary. And I'm going to talk about the risk also in a bit, and I'm sure more during this podcast. Artificial general intelligence means, because right now we have, it started with very narrow AI applications. If you look back a bit, there were AIs playing chess, but those AI were amazingly good in playing chess. They beat the world champion, but they could do nothing else than playing chess. So this was a narrow application, but the applications are getting wider and wider. And there is this kind of goal, or this idea that there could be a so-called AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is amazing or superhuman in all tasks. And this is something which is in development. I understand. I'm not working for those companies. I don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. I'm sure it does. Currently it doesn't exist, at least not available for the public. Yeah. So we are already at quite an advanced stage, which we couldn't imagine some years ago. But there's also, unless we hit some kind of wall or we stop it all, there's also reason for optimism that this will continue and getting more amazing every year and even faster. I said optimism, but there's also a reason for pessimism, because it's important to note, there are amazing opportunities, and if they are used wisely for the health sector, education, climate change, hopefully there will be AI tools which provides us with amazing opportunities. On the other hand, there are also quite a number of risks. And I had a look at a few of your other episodes, and I think you focused quite a bit on those with other candidates on those counterparts, on those opportunities. But then it's important, I think, to talk about the risk. This is what I'm doing in my book. But also, I mean, quite a number of risks are already well known and are talked about, but perhaps not still not sufficiently addressed. And sometimes they're also very difficult to address. Those risks like bias, unfairness, misinformation, disinformation, deepfakes, cybercrime, and also, again, digital divide, which is a huge risk, arms race. But also the risk for the environment must not be neglected, because currently those data centers, they need massive amounts of energy. This is absolutely not environmentally friendly. It goes up to existential risks. There are a huge number of risks. Many are already to some extent known to the public, but the focus on the idea of the book, which I co-authored with Professor Roman Yampolskiy, and which is actually today, on the day of recording, is the official publication date. So this is a nice coincidence, was that there, in addition to the well-known risk, we identified even a couple of more issues and risks, because this is such a huge field. And these further risks and issues we are introducing in this book. In summary, yes, there have been amazing developments which we couldn't foresee some time ago. There can be important and great opportunities, but we have to also look at the risk. This goes back to what I talked about or related to UNESCO before. It's important. AI governance, AI ethics, they are very critical. Those risks have to be addressed. And I hope I have a chance to talk about this.
Right. Doctor, yes, I think we are sitting at such a fantastic point of time in human history. If we collaborate, I think the world will become so awesome. Yet on the opposite side is that multiple pronged risk. It's not just one specific risk. We are staring at a bunch of existential crises, one and the largest being, climate crisis, where there's so much of consumption in the world today, because I think the world is growing economically, and because of which we are consuming more without conservation, because of which there is so much pollution, there is resource depletion. So climate crisis is one, asteroids is the second. Third is the geopolitical instability, because the world has gone, like, instead of collaborating, it's going towards conflict. There is these two giant nations, US and China, trying to acquire these emerging tech stack, because the acquisition of these tech stack will give them unfair advantage. And that's the reason, there is this US-China, then there is Russia-Ukraine war, there's Israel-Palestine. And also that, it's not just AI. I think these tech stack is converging, convergence of tech stack, these biotechnology with this genetic editing, with CRISPR-Cas9. Students are now getting the capabilities of tinker around with the source code of life, DNA. And we can possibly maybe engineer these novel viruses also, So it's this multi-pronged existential risk that we are staring at. But yes, the other side is that that's only when it goes into the bad actors, in the bad hands. The other side is that, we can create abundance, through these technological tool that we be getting, we can augment mankind. So I think the choice really depends upon humanity. Where do we go and what do we choose? Whether we choose conflict or which we choose a collaboration. It'll be great if you can elaborate on the book, because the book is titled Considerations on the AI Game. It's a little AI Endgame itself, and it sounds really scary. So maybe it will be great if you could elaborate on the AI Endgame and maybe on the book. And what does that offer to the audience?
Yes, thank you. And first of all, I very much agree with what you're saying. Again, this is kind of, we have amazing opportunities, but on the other hand, there are also so many issues to tackle. You mentioned, and when it comes to wars, you mentioned a few, but it's also very important to look to check or to reflect what's covered in the media a lot and what's not so much. I mean, Russia, Ukraine, Gaza war, they are big in the media, but for instance, Sudan war, hardly anybody talks about, and even much more victims, much more refugees, displaced people. So this is also an issue. It's just a side note that there are things covered in the media, and then there are even other very bad things often not covered in the media at all. Right, and thank you so much for giving me the chance to talk about this book. Yes, we called it AI Endgame because usually Endgame is, you have it in chess, this is something that the final stage of some action or process, and often in an endgame you have kind of irreversible moves and which are really then decisive. And this is what we believe we are, because you said we are at a very important point in time, and I guess we are also in terms of what moves to make now related to AI. And they could be irreversible, and we have to decide whether we literally move towards an utopian or dystopian scenario. As I said, many topics, risk of AI, have been identified and to some extent are looked at, but not that. I mean, sometimes also still neglected, like the issues of, I'm repeating myself, bias and digital divide and safety, security, accountability, transparency, all this. Explainability, a huge issue. My co-author, Roman Yampolskiy, he published a book before, which is all about unexplainability of AI. I mean, it's a huge issue that we have. AI is our big tool, but we even can't explain it. What's going on there, which also is understandable because, and this is the other thing, why this is all unprecedented, because AI is something which is in the end smarter than us, and it's much smarter. So we shouldn't be surprised that we can't explain it. And it's also kind of arrogant in a way that people that we are aiming to govern AI, while I mean it hasn't happened in history that beings which are less intelligent are able to govern something which is much more intelligent. I mean, the monkeys and the dogs in the world, they are not governing us because they can't. But about the book again, so as I said before, in addition to all these issues, we believe there are even more issues and which we identified and which are neglected. And I'm happy to talk about them one by one if you have a chance. There's the issue of what we call I risk, that we lose the purpose of life. There's the issue of AI identity, AI religion, the AI alignment problem overall. I mean, this is a well-known problem, but we identified or looked at some other facets of it. And a further topic would be this digital Neo-Colonialism, which is linked to the digital divide. These are all individual chapters of the book, and we believe are very important and need
right. Yeah. So I think it'd be great if you could, maybe define digital neo-colonialism and why is this topic relevant? Yes, I think there is a country which is acting like an overlord of sorts, AI overlord of sorts, because I mean, I'm pointing out to the US government, which is literally kind of, stopped NVIDIA to kind of export, chips to China, and there's the US government's, the diffusion and export control policy, which kind of divides the world into three different parts, the allied nations and so on and so forth. So yes, I think, it will be great if you could define digital neo-colonialism, why it's important at this point in time.
Yes, thank you. And I fully agree with what you just said. This is a big problem. And yes, so as we said before, AI ethics are critical, but when it comes to ethics at all currently, they're mostly Western ethics are used. And this is a problem because if Western nations work on AI ethics, then usually those approaches tend to reflect the values of these regions and not of the rest of the world. But then we have the issue that not all values, not all ethics are universal. We are glad that we live in a wide and diverse world with lots of values, with lots of cultures. So this is a big risk if now the Western values are, before AI, that there was a kind of, at least to some extent, a Western dominance. But if AI is dominated and if AI systems are getting training data from Western countries only, and if AI internally thinks that this is what the world is about, this is a big problem. Because if we look at and this is what one chapter of the book, what current the global landscape of ethics guidelines, or there's the European Union ethic guidelines for trustworthy AI. They all focus basically on Western values. And I mean, this is fine as long as those are universal values, but this is not always the case. And for instance, I picked one example, which is related to the country where you're from India. For instance, when it comes to bias, this problem has been now identified. But then usually in the West, we're talking about three dimensions of bias. There's gender bias, there's race bias, and to some extent, perhaps disability bias, maybe age, sexual orientation. But then there's a very interesting report which I used for the chapter. For instance, in India, there are several other axes of discrimination, which may be very critical when it comes to AI, like the caste system, the classes, the religion. And this applies also to other countries and cultures. So there are different axes of discrimination which are not reflected. This is just one example. And also, there are so many other, as I said, diverse cultures in the world. For this chapter, we looked at Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, African cultures, this Ubuntu approach, which are all not usually reflected in current AI ethic approaches. And now it's critical, and this is kind of linked to the value alignment system, to check whether those values are compatible. Because, for instance, just an extreme example, if we have our Western values and then we look at the values of the Taliban in Afghanistan, of course, this is not really compatible. There's a clash of values, so we cannot combine this within an AI system. And it's not desirable anyway, but we cannot combine this with an AI system. But what we found are approaches from like those other cultures, like Buddhism, again, which I just mentioned. This is very well compatible and can be combined within AI ethics. Is ignored. And this is and we didn't invent this term because it's also applied in other contexts. What is part of this digital neo-colonialism? Because, it's, in colonial times, there was a kind of Western countries try to dominate to some extent the world. And now we're back to this at a different phase of time through other means. And we hope there's still time to reverse this, to look at this because the digital divide is what we don't want in AI, and we want a cultural divide. So AI ideally should reflect values from all cultures, if possible, and compatible.
Right. Doctor, I was hoping, when humans get access to a tech like this, which is self-learning, we would give away our differences and unite, because in unity is more strength. I wished that, we would give away our greed. And like you mentioned, the motto of United Nations, work towards taking everyone along, leave no one behind. But I think the opposite is happening, because every nation is working towards, racing towards of sorts to acquire these exponential tech stack, and you also pointed out, that we are struggling to understand AI, because, it still is a black box, and there are various people who are working towards AI explainability, but we still cannot understand what happens under the hood of these LLM statistical models. And there is something weird which is going on. These are still statistical models. These are basically data in, data out models. They are nowhere near to how our brain functions. But still, there's something very unique going on. That these LLMs have shown these emergent properties, and then recently Anthropic AI Claude, spoke about how that these AI are showing these deliberate deceptive behaviors, and faking alignment. You spoke about AI safety and AI alignment. What's the current research going on in AI safety and AI alignment? Will be great if you could talk about that.
Yes, thank you very much. Maybe I give a first brief introduction about the problem, and then we have come up with two ideas, because this is a complicated and tricky field, and maybe there is just no solution. And it goes back to what I talked about before. So the AI alignment problem is about that we need which is aligned with human values, human goals, that they are not, the AI, number one, has to understand what our values are, and also has to act in such a way. And this is a big problem. There's many aspects. We're by far not the only ones working on this problem. Many others are working on the problem. And it becomes even a bigger problem if we reach the level of artificial general intelligence or any AI, which is much, much smarter than us, because there it is critical, but we don't know if it is possible at all, that such an AI is aligned to our values. And this problem can be broken down, we can break down into three sub problems. The first is to extract the values, second, to aggregate them, and third, to instill them into these systems. And so what does the first mean? The first problem means we have to first be sure or identify what are actually our values. And this is an interesting question. When the philosophy and is around for centuries and or fields which are looking at human values. But when it comes now to really precisely specify human values, this is a problem. And what I talked about regarding the previous question of the different cultures and different values. So there are so many human values. What are actually our values which we want to teach in AI? So this is already the first and very hard problem. And then secondly, we have to aggregate it, that it is come to a value system which is consistent. I mentioned this extreme example of Afghan Taliban. If we include their values, then it's basically impossible to come, this again, just an example, it's basically impossible to come up with a compatible, consistent system, because there are then these values are clashing. And then the third step is to put this all in an AI system and tell and so that the AI system learns this. This is a technical problem, also very, very hard. The two approaches or ideas, and they're kind of different, we came up with in our book is, and again, this is also related to my my work, because I work for the United Nations. So I'm a big fan and supporter of the United Nations. So, and what this, and this is, I hope it's kind of well known. I'm not sure. Otherwise, I briefly mentioned it. There are those so-called UN Sustainability SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. This is the UN Agenda for Sustainable Development from 2015-2030. So kind of we are almost already 10 years into this agenda. 2015, all UN member states came up with 17 Sustainable Development Goals, subdivided in 169 targets. And this is something the world wanted to achieve by 2030. Very ambitious goals in all fields, from food, education, health, climate, employment, you name it. Very ambitious. This is a different question. If we are managed, we have only 5 years left, and has been COVID in between. There have been wars in between, so it's not so clear if we're going to manage this. But my point was, so if we look at universal human values, why don't we because we take those UN SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, because this is what all the 193 member states agreed on. Maybe we should teach the AI that this is for now what we want, because as we said before, these values need to be universal, but they also need to be specific. And they are specific to some extent, because I can give an example of, because those 169 targets, there are 232 indicators to quantify and specify and to monitor the progress. And if we look at a very specific example, this is one target is to halve the number of global deaths and injuries from road traffic accidents. So that means it's something we can agree on. Road traffic accidents are bad. We want to halve the number. So this was one target. Then and this is a very specific target. So we can teach there are 169 of them, but we can tell the AI system, this is our values, this is what we want to reach. But also this approach or this example shows already that how complicated it is, even if we agree on this value, then to teach the AI this value. Because if you look at this, there's then the specific example, there's this what's called perverse instantiation, because we think it's very specific that we want that less people die in road traffic accidents. But then what in theory the AI could aim for is to destroy all motorized vehicles, because this is something which would fulfill this target. If there are no vehicles anymore, then there won't be any traffic accidents anymore. So we use this example to show, even if we think this is already a very specific value, that we don't want to die in traffic accidents, to teach the AI what to do is still yet another task. Also, there's the other issue. If we feed this now into AI systems, there's the chance that human values may change. Of course, when it comes to road traffic accidents, this will probably always be our aim, that we don't want them. But then if we look at, there's another target in this UN list, achieve full and productive employment and decent work for all women and men. So we don't know if this will be always our value, because in times of advanced technologies, maybe this is in the future anyway not realistic anymore and not worthwhile that everyone works. So there may be human values which may change over time. Often over centuries, human values have changed. There used to be slavery. There used to be many issues. What's also important, if we teach now the AI systems our values, there has to be a chance that this has to be readjusted and that they're not kind of literally written in stone and we can't change them anymore. So this is an issue. And then there's also the final issue of the so-called treacherous turn. Even if we find a way we exactly define our values, we teach them all, the AI system learns them all, then we have no guarantee if after a while this AI system in theory may still turn evil and give up all these values and comes up with their own agenda, which is also beyond our control. This was one idea because we believe this is a list of current values or current universal values compiled by the UN. But again, this alignment problem is
right. Yeah, we are in such a tricky position because, like you rightfully pointed out, I think our human values have forever kind of evolved, and there are so many wrongs rather than rights. I mean, because look at our entire human history. We have religion, which has forever divided humanity. You spoke about the caste and creed problem in India. I mean, that's so terrible, which has like completely divided us rather than uniting. So I think, there is a need for us to look at old institutions or religions or politics, which has forever taken the divide and rule policies. So there is so many new things I think we need to kind of maybe instill and understand ourselves, because I think humans are still like in a path towards our evolution to understand our space, who we are, what we are. And the only I think clean thing that I see is spiritualism, and because even institutions, it's all centralized, I mean, I believe that I think the future demands us to be, which is more decentralized, in a decentralized world. So yes, I think, we've got these multi-pronged problems. How do we model these human values, which is forever been changing, and we are at this cusp of change where technology is moving at the speed of light and we are unable to kind of catch that. It'll be great if you could talk about this intersection of Ikigai in AI ethics.
Yes, thank you so much for raising this question, because this perhaps of all the topics in the book, the one I'm most passionate about. And it's also a risk which we see and which we believe is much under reported and neglected, and this is that humans may kind of use the purpose of life when it comes to when in the time of further AI advancements. And we use this Japanese concept of Ikigai, which will not be known to everyone. I don't have to go into detail, but it's basically it's the Ikigai is Japanese and stands for the reason or purpose to live. But I guess many cultures, most people, they have something similar. We just used one term, Ikigai, but you can translate it to a reason and purpose to live. And this is basically what every human is trying to find in their lives. Purpose, why we live, something we are passionate about what we do, and people have different ikigais, and this is a problem or an issue for centuries. Humans try to find why what we are supposed to do and why we are alive. I believe, or we think, and there are also surveys showing this, that many people have found the Ikigai, and again, that they can be diverse. It can be, for many people, these are their jobs and professions are their Ikigai, the reason to live. They love their jobs. Other people have hobbies. It could be their families. What we can see and foresee is that there's a major risk that of Ikigai loss when it comes to AI advancement, because AI will take over so many tasks, which is on the one hand an opportunity, and which is nice, and especially when it's tedious tasks or tasks we're not good at. But so what is becoming clear that many professional occupations will be gone perhaps in the future, including now also more and more like creative jobs. People will lose their jobs. Many other tasks are taken over could be taken over by AI. So the big problem, and again, we believe this is very much underreported or not really thought through, is what are we going to do in those times with all the time we have at hand? How we are going to spend the day? Because many activities we spend our days on nowadays may be taken over by AI. In addition, that's why we have more time at hand. But in addition, if AI is really as successful when it comes to the health sector, we are also living longer and healthier lives which means we're having even more time. So how we are going to spend all the time? And this is what we're calling Ikigai risk, I risk, that it's great to have AI, but then when we wake up in the morning and we have a long day ahead of us, and many of our usual activities may not be available anymore, including our jobs. So what are we going to do? And this is, we believe, could be a massive problem. There's also this interesting field of time use research. And this is a kind of niche field, but I think this applies to this topic also quite well, because time use research, there's research, and apart from how people also in different countries spend their day, apart from time we sleep, but then there's a time for personal hygiene, time for preparing food, time for eating, but then there's a time also where we work, where we have to do certain tasks. If we look at time use research, is much more free time may come up. Again, this is what we call Ikigai risk, I risk. And then in another chapter, we offer an approach, an idea what to do, which may sound dystopian to many, which may sound like science fiction. But one option perhaps is that we could find new Ikigais, new purpose for life in virtual environments. Because thanks to AI, the virtual environments are getting better and better. And there's a chance that we spend much more time in virtual environments. And they are not only virtual, but they're also hyper-personalized with content which is tailored for us, for specific humans, according to our preferences, and their feedback loops. So if we spend time in virtual environments, we could find perhaps Ikigais there. And we have to be very clear, this is not supposed to be entertainment. Entertainment is a different story, and entertainment is not necessarily an Ikigai. Entertainment is also a way to spend time, but we want to find a purpose. So the question is whether we could find a purpose in those virtual worlds. And if we look at a few examples of what used to be our Ikigais, I mean, if we had an Ikigai to learn, to understand the world, then there could be massive virtual worlds with a different history, different biology, different laws of physics, which we try to learn and understand. There's also the Ikigai caring for a pet or to socialize. We could also socialize with artificial beings in the virtual world. Again, this is just an idea, and many people may reject this idea. But we also have to stress that in the past, humans were often skeptical towards new technologies, and then finally they adjusted their behavior. And it's quite obvious if we look at our few generations back, those people would have not expected that we spend now so much time on a mobile phone, on a smartphone, and we still enjoy this. So there's quite a chance that things we are considering nowadays as dystopian, that they become normal soon. What we try to identify this, what we believe really serious, and I'm very passionate about problem of Ikigai risk, that we don't know what to do in this AI environment, and to identify at least one approach, what may be a solution, or that we would find new Ikigais in a virtual world. There are some advantages, because those AI systems, they may exactly understand what type of based on our preferences, and when they get to know each other, they would exactly understand what we are striving for. People may be lost. Nowadays, many people are lost and don't find a purpose in life. But AI systems, they may individually suggest those specific Ikigais in a virtual world. They are smart, and this may be then an idea to find purpose in a different way. We even suggested that this could become a digital public good, so that, again, to avoid the digital divide, and not only that kind of rich people have the chance to enjoy themselves or find Ikigai in a virtual world. Of course, again, this has to be then also because also poor people or less advantaged people may use the purpose of life because they lose their jobs, they don't know what to do. So if so, then they should be also equally divided, perhaps as a digital public good, and that everyone can benefit from it. And we are not saying that this is a perfect solution. Mainly, we would like to point out this problem, which is not really talked about. We believe that because, there's the extreme scenario that AI kills us all. There's many different scenarios in between, but also there's a scenario that AI provides us with all these opportunities will be implemented and realized.
Thank you for sharing this insight and foresight. Yes, I think nobody is talking about this problem that we are facing, the entire human race is facing, because this iris concept that you spoke about, this AI automation, because even at this point of time, there is so many job loss. There are these agent AIs, which does AI coding. There is AI scientists that we're working towards, and there's this generative AI stack which does text to image, text to video, text to world building, and so on and so forth. So yes, I think in the next few years, when these AI models becomes more capable, there'll be millions of possible job loss, and that would definitely lead to us losing our meaning and our purpose, because humans have forever, our purpose has been what we do, that gives us joy, and that gives us also the money to live our life beautifully and create a family, and once that kind of purpose goes away, when AI is doing all the jobs, then we lose our meaning. And the solution that you spoke about can be really, really profound, because yes, I think we're in the cusp of building these virtual worlds of sorts, where Meta has pioneered these metaverses. And I personally have been invested in virtual reality since 2016, and we are building these virtual worlds. And these virtual worlds, I think, are going to get more and more and more capable. It's going to be possibly maybe as possibly indistinguishable from a real world, which with technologies which converges with such as AR VR glasses to our brain computer interfaces, and possibly these virtual worlds will have these AI agents, these artificial beings, possibly agentic AI is doing all our work. So yes, that virtual world could be a solution, because and yes, even now these virtual worlds solves so many problems, because these when we even when we work per se, we go from one place to another, and there is so much of personal carbon footprint, and those also will be erased, if we can do work virtually, or, or healthcare or education virtually. So yes, I think there is quite a profound solution, because nobody is talking about the problem, this iris concept of yours or AI automation. Will you be able to also elaborate on the research of Qualia? Why is consciousness important in the AI alignment research?
Yes, thank you again for this question also. Yes, so this is another approach we have suggested related to this AI alignment problem. And as I mentioned before, because the tricky part, or perhaps impossible part, is to identify the human values and to specify them exactly. So, but then we thought, but what we can all agree on, that what humans are aiming for are first perhaps I should define it if people don't know. So Qualia are instances of conscious experiences. What is it if I see a red color? What is it when I hear specific music? What are my experiences to experience happiness? This is something we can all agree on. Humans, we aim to experience positive qualia like pleasure, and we try to avoid negative qualia like suffering and pain. All humans in the world, we try to avoid negative qualia and strive for positive qualia. The thing is, as we're also all aware, that when it comes to consciousness research or scientific approaches, this is an extremely hard problem. It's very hard to scientifically approach this topic, and there has been some progress, but it's still early. But for now, it is really hard to kind of scientifically approach what I'm feeling when I see a red color. I don't even know if you feel the same if you see a red color, or your qualia may be completely different, but we have no way to find out. However, there has been progress in neurotechnology, and I think this can be harnessed. So there is the neuroscience and neurotechnology, they have made advances, and it's now much there are ways to identify, to really translate certain brain activities to what we are feeling, seeing, imagining, thinking. Again, this has also a dark side, because there are applications because the thoughts in our mind, this is kind of our ultimate freedom. And of course, there's a dark and risky side if people can read what we are thinking. But apart from this risk, so if it is possible to identify through neurotechnology what makes us happy, what makes us suffer, so perhaps then AI systems can learn through those neurotechnology approaches what is it, what activities create pleasure, what create pain. So this would be a different level rather than human values. It's about on this Qualia level. And if the AI could be taught, do not do any activities which cause humans to suffer, but do only activities which creates pleasure for them. So this would be a universal approach. And assuming that neuroscience and neurotechnologies are further advancing, that AI through this knowledge could identify what is good for us, what makes us happy. This is another idea we are suggesting there, that the neuroscience of consciousness, which is in early stages but has been making progress over the years, could help to address this AI value alignment problem.
Doctor, in your book, you also talk about the mathematics of intelligence. These LLMs are, even these are data in, data out model. They're supposed to be the next word generator or the next token generator of sorts. Will you be able to maybe explain what is intelligent, and can we create a mathematical model that captures its essence, intelligence?
There are so many different definitions. So we take one definition which has been used quite a bit. This says intelligence measures an agent's ability to achieve goals in a wide range of environment. This is a definition by Hutter and Leck. Again, they're very different definitions. What we link this topic, mathematics of intelligence, with is another topic which we also believe is critical, but nobody has talked about it, which is linked to AI identity. So there's this very old philosophical problem when it comes to personal identity. And for centuries, and I believe probably in many cultures, philosophers have debated this. So what is it that defines the continuity of a person over time? What makes it that I feel that I have continuity with this 6-year-old child many years ago, with my teenage myself over the years? How come there's this personal continuity or personal identity, given also, for example, that basically all the atoms in my body have changed over the years. So it's not about the matter, that there's something that I feel this continuity, this identity. And linked to this, we identified the issues of AI identity. So what is it that there's identity of an AI system over time? And we believe this is really critical, especially when it comes to, for several reasons, when it comes to ownerships and patents. If someone owns an AI system or has a certain patent on an AI system, how does this person know that after 1 year, this is still the same AI system? Also, when it comes to this debated legal issue of personhood of AI, when we assign accountability to AI systems, there could be business later on, even if there's personhood of AI, there could be business relationships with AI. But we don't know, similar to the personal identity problem, the AI identity problem, how can we measure that this is really still the same AI system in 1 year and 5 years? This becomes also relevant for this upcoming topic of companion AIs, which is yet another huge topic. This is also in early stages, but more and more relevant. People have those companion AIs, but how do they know that they remain the same over time? So we link this problem of personal identity, and I get back to this, the question about the mathematics in a bit. So we link this problem of personal identity with this identity problem, which we think has not been talked about. And so one solution we offer, there could be this multi-factor authentication, and because this is used to also for humans to identify that they are the same, or that, and we use it every day when we enter passwords or pins, or also our biometrics may be used. So because there used to be only like one factor authentication, like only a PIN, only a password, but for security reasons, there have been other dimensions added, which makes sense. And so what we came up with is one approach, what we call multi-factor authentication, that we have several factors to compare if an AI system is still the same it used to be like 1 hour ago or 1 week ago, 1 month ago. And this is critical because when it comes, unlike for humans, there are scenarios which don't apply to humans at all, but for AI systems, and one of its several AI systems could be merged. They could be turned off and turned on again. Their hardware could completely change. So there are very different scenarios can be envisaged, and even more in the future for which it is relevant then to identify if this is still the same AI system. And this mathematics of AI, this would apply to those, or if mathematics of intelligence would apply to those scenarios like when we merge AI systems. So what does it mean to merge several intelligences, or when we separate them, it's called, or take only parts of one AI system. This is linked to there are massive challenges, especially when we look at personhood of AI, ownership, etc. Many scenarios can be envisaged for which those mathematics and this identity problem have to be specified. Again, this is also only early stages, and we hoped that we made a small contribution to this, or at least we raised attention.
You talk about some AI applications that has caught your attention specifically towards the UN SDG goals.
I worked for UNESCO in India 3 years ago, and there we published the State of Education report for the country of India. This is a yearly product by UNESCO, and for the year 2022, we had the theme artificial intelligence. When it comes to education, there are also great opportunities, and this is mostly due to personalized learning systems and also due to online learning systems. Again, very critical is the digital divide for a country like India, but also for other countries in the world. This is only possible if everyone has access, if everyone has fast internet, so which is a very important precondition. But once this is secured, then there could be personal education, AI education systems, which can be basically turned on in a remote village, provided there's internet at any time, and there's a personalized teacher which knows exactly the weaknesses and strengths of a particular students, can adapt to this. It's not like there's a classroom with many students which are all on different level. So personalized systems are critical. Again, it goes back to a previous topic, the digital Neo-Colonialism. It's very important that the content of those systems is linked to that this is not like an American product which is based on but these systems have to be based on, the content has to be linked to the specific country, but also the training data, because those systems need training data to identify strength and weaknesses, and to propose then new tasks and activities. So this has to be adapted to a certain country. But when it comes to education, and when I prepared this report 3 years ago, and then again, this is even 3 years ago now, 3 years later, there have been even more advancements. There are amazing opportunities which could help to reach those, at least those sustainable development goals when it comes to health and education, and also to some others. Climate change is another one. It's not in this talk. I didn't want to be only pessimistic. I wanted to point out that there are a number of risks which really have to be looked at. But if we get it right, I'm very optimistic.
My last question to you. Think that this is 2035, 10 years from now. What's the world that you want to be living in, and what do you think how do you think AI will look like, and how it's going to merge in a society, and how it's going to make changes to the entire world and society? It will be great if you could paint a picture.
Yes, thank you. No, I want to be optimistic. There are reasons to be pessimistic, but I want to be optimistic, and this would mean that those that AI applications which will help the whole of humanity, not only a few privileged nations or people. There should be beneficial AI applications, but for everyone. There should be humans should be able to find our Ikigai, our purpose to live, and don't wake up in the morning and let AI do everything, but don't know how to spend the day. This would be terrible. In order to reach this state, we have to address all these challenges we talked about. I'm not sure if this is possible within 10 years. You outlined a few of them. I talked about a few. There are many, many challenges. We have to address them. But I hope in the end the opportunities will prevail for everyone. And again, that we have a purpose of life.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking time and being part of the podcast. Yes, I think we are sitting at the most fantastic point of human history. And if we take the right path, I think we will really augment mankind, and we will take the whole of humanity rather than how we have been living so far, where only possibly 1,000 people or these billionaires and trillionaires, they literally run the world, and the rest of the world is just making do. But yes, I think with this new species or sort that we are birthing at this point in time, with which I think if we are able to align and instill the right human values, I think the future is going to be really, really exciting. Wish you the very best for your book, The Considerations on the AI Game. And thank you once again for taking time and being part of the podcast. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, then please press the subscribe button. And until next time, see you guys. Thank you, Doctor. Really appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.